It all started with a single glance. The kind of glance that, once noticed, can never be unseen. It lingers. It infects your mind. It steals your sleep and whispers 1,000 questions into your soul. I saw that glance on my birthday, between my husband and my sister. And for the first time in 10 years of marriage, I realized something was deeply, horribly wrong. But let me back up. I'm Ava Monroe, 35. Marketing director for a fashion label, wife to a charming entrepreneur, and, until recently, older sister to the woman I loved more than anyone else in the world. We weren't rich growing up, but we had each other. I worked 2 jobs to get her through college. Paid her rent for a year when she couldn't land a job. I always thought of her as my little bird, fragile but full of potential. Turns out she was more vulture than sparrow. My husband, Daniel, was the classic catch. Suave. The kind of man who could sell anything with a smile, and sold me the dream of forever. When we married, people called us a power couple. My sister, Celeste, toasted us at the wedding with tears in her eyes. Now I wonder if she was crying because she realized he was supposed to be hers. The morning of my 35th birthday was unusually quiet. No breakfast in bed. No eager footsteps or wrapping paper rustling. Just silence and the sound of my husband whistling in the shower, like he wasn't forgetting something. I padded into the kitchen and saw nothing, not even a card. "Morning," I said, leaning on the counter. Daniel walked in, towel slung low on his hips, and kissed my cheek absent-mindedly. "Morning, babe." I waited. Nothing. I tried. "So, any plans for today?" He blinked. "Oh shoot. Today's the big pitch meeting with Mercer's team. It'll probably go long." I stared. "Daniel. It's my birthday." He paused. "Oh. Right. Babe, I'm so sorry. Work's been insane. Let's do something this weekend, yeah?" I smiled a little too tightly. "Sure." That weekend came and went. So did the one after. 3 weeks later, I got a notification from our shared credit card. $1,720. 4 Seasons Resort. 2 guests. I sat frozen in my office chair, my coffee going cold in my hand. He hadn't forgotten. He just hadn't taken me. The confrontation didn't come right away. I wasn't ready. I needed to know more. That night, I lay next to him in bed, our backs turned like strangers, and stared at the shadows dancing across the ceiling. The next morning, I called the resort. The woman on the line confirmed the reservation. Daniel Monroe and Celeste James. My own sister. I laughed. Loud and sharp and so sudden it startled the intern sitting near my desk. "Sorry," I murmured, spinning in my chair to hide the way my hands trembled. I wasn't the type to scream. I wasn't the type to cry in public or throw drinks or beg for answers. I was the type to smile. And smile I did. The first step was silence. Let them think I didn't know. Let them lower their guards. The second step was surveillance. I hired a private investigator, not to catch them but to understand them. I wanted to know how long it had been going on. I wanted dates, receipts, conversations. What he gave me was more than I expected. Pictures. Dozens. Him touching her back at a wine bar. Her climbing into his Tesla, his hand low on her thigh. And then the final blow. A video, her in my silk robe laughing in our living room while he poured her my favorite wine. My rage burned clean. Quiet. I didn't throw things. I didn't call him a monster. I smiled. And I began. Daniel's business wasn't just his, it was ours. Registered under both names. A boutique branding agency I helped him build from nothing. While he schmoozed clients and charmed investors, I did the operations, the back end, the silent groundwork. He forgot that. I met with my lawyer, updated ownership documents and pulled every string I could. I transferred major assets into my name, citing performance restructuring. He signed off on all of it, trusting me like he always had. By the time he realized, it would be far too late. Celeste still called me, of course. Still pretended to be the doting sister. "We should do brunch soon," she chirped in a voice that made me picture her glossed lips kissing my husband. "Definitely," I said. "I want to give you something in person. A birthday gift, late but special." "Oh, that's so sweet, Ava." I made the reservation at a place she loved. Rooftop, overpriced, filled with influencers and mirror-tiled bathrooms. The kind of place where everyone looked perfect and no one was really listening. Except I was. "I saw your pictures," I said calmly. "Cast what pictures?" I slid my phone across the table. Her smile froze. I know everything. The resort. The wine bar. The robe. My robe. She swallowed, her tongue darting nervously to her bottom lip. Ava. I'm not angry, I said, sipping my drink. I just wanted to see how you'd react. To see if you'd lie to my face or tell the truth. It wasn't supposed to happen, she whispered. Oh, I believe you, I smiled. I believe you never meant to fall in love with him. But you did. No. I'm going to give you exactly what you wanted. She blinked. What? You're going to get him. All of him. The debts. The lawsuits. The embarrassment. Everything. That night I went home early. Daniel was in his office tapping away at emails. I watched him for a moment. The man I married. The man who shared his body, his laughter, and his dreams with my sister. Hey babe, he smiled. I was just about to come find you. I smiled back. Let's talk. And when he turned to face me, he didn't realize that every move had already been played. That the company was mine. That the money was slipping away. That the house was already being appraised for sale. That his betrayal didn't just break me, it freed me. He thought he held the power. But I smiled. Because he had no idea what was coming. Some storms don't start with thunder. They start in silence. In carefully typed emails. In handshakes behind office doors. In polite smiles stretched over betrayal. I wasn't going to destroy them with drama. I was going to ruin them with grace. And they'd never see it coming. After my quiet confrontation with Celeste, she did what I expected. She ran to Daniel. I imagined the conversation, her crocodile tears, her panic, her trembling voice as she confessed that Ava knows. I pictured Daniel's face twisting in confusion, then guilt, then calculation. Because Daniel wasn't the kind of man who apologized. He was the kind who plotted. Who moved pieces. Who thought he was 10 steps ahead. But while he'd been playing house with my sister, I'd been building my arsenal. Daniel didn't realize the full extent of what I'd done until he tried to withdraw funds from our joint business account and found the balance frozen. He called me that morning. His voice was tight, just barely masking the panic. Hey love. I think there's some kind of banking issue. Our account is locked. Did you do something? I leaned back in my chair at the office I now solely owned. Oh. That must be the transition hold. The board approved the asset reallocation last week. Reallocation? His voice cracked. What are you talking about? I told you I was restructuring things, remember? Legal made it very clean. You signed the transfer docs yourself. I paused, then added sweetly, don't worry, Daniel. You're still a minority shareholder. He cursed under his breath. You can't do this. But I already did. I hung up, dropped the phone, and exhaled. One piece down. The image. Next came his reputation. Daniel's entire empire, his identity, was built on image. The charming entrepreneur. The community mentor. The husband with the perfect life. That image. It had an expiration date. I contacted a journalist friend of mine, Lauren Park. She owed me a favor. I gave her the receipts. Photos, emails, the resort invoice, the timeline, and details about a questionable charity Daniel had been skimming from to fund his personal expenses. Including the romantic getaway. Lauren's story went live a week later. The headline read, Power Couple or Powder Keg. Ava Monroe quietly exits while husband crumbles. The article didn't scream scandal. It whispered it. Enough for gossip to ignite. Enough for investors to panic. Our house was the final symbol. The illusion of a life built together. A modern, glass-walled architectural dream in the hills. He loved showing it off. She loved lounging in my robe on its velvet couches. I listed it quietly through a private broker. By the time Daniel found out, there was already a signed offer on the table. When he showed up at my office, I wasn't surprised. But Celeste was with him. That did surprise me. She looked different. Hollow. Like maybe she was starting to understand the weight of what she'd stolen. Daniel stormed in like a hurricane. What the hell do you think you're doing? I stood calm, collected. Business, Daniel. Isn't that what you're so good at? You sold our house. You froze my company. You leaked stories to the press. I didn't leak anything. I told my story. If your truth was too ugly to survive the light, maybe you should have kept it in the dark. Celeste stepped forward, voice trembling. Ava, please, can we just talk? This has all gotten out of hand. I tilted my head. Out of hand. Celeste, you slept with my husband. On my birthday. At a resort I once dreamed of visiting. Her face flushed. But here's the thing, I continued, voice dropping. I'm not punishing you. I'm freeing you. You wanted him? You can have him. In his full, broken, publicly disgraced form. I walked around the desk, stopped inches from her and whispered, "Happy belated birthday." They left that day humiliated. But not defeated. Not yet. Daniel still had friends. Investors. Loyalists. He'd been painted into a corner, yes, but rats are dangerous when cornered. And I needed to ensure this wasn't just revenge. It had to be permanent. I moved into a downtown loft. Small, sunlit, nothing like our sprawling mansion, but mine. Every square foot. The walls were bare at first. My wardrobe was half empty. But the silence felt different now. It wasn't loneliness. It was freedom. At work, my name was on everything now. The company thrived. We dropped Daniel's last name branding. Our relaunch campaign, built by her, went viral. I didn't cry at night. I didn't wait for apologies. I took my hurt and made it a foundation. Weeks later, I received a message from Celeste. It was long. Rambling. She said Daniel had changed. Grown cold. Accused her of being the reason his life fell apart. That he blamed her for everything. That she wished she could go back. That she missed me. I read it 3 times. And then I deleted it. She wasn't sorry. She was stranded. Daniel, on the other hand, had gone quiet. His social media was scrubbed. He hadn't responded to press requests in weeks. Rumor had it he was trying to pitch a comeback venture, but no one was biting. He was untouchable once. Now he was radioactive. One morning I received an invitation. Not theirs. To myself. I threw a private event, an unveiling, my team called it. We invited clients, media, designers. Everyone Daniel used to impress. I walked in wearing white. Not a gown but a power suit. Impeccable. Symbolic. As I stepped onto the stage to launch our new line, Reclaim, I scanned the crowd. And I saw them. Daniel and Celeste. He looked smaller. She looked lost. I met their eyes. I smiled. And I spoke. Good evening, I began. When I was younger, I thought love was something you were lucky to find. Something you should protect at all costs, even when it hurt. But I've learned something since then. I let the silence settle. Love isn't luck. It's not blind devotion. Real love starts with yourself. With boundaries. With dignity. And sometimes, with walking away. There was a beat of silence. Then applause. But I didn't hear it. I was too busy watching their faces. That night I danced. With friends. With clients. Joy. I didn't cry in the bathroom. I didn't check my phone waiting for some pathetic apology. I didn't chase ghosts. They had each other now. A man stripped of power and a woman hollowed out by guilt. That was their love story. Mine had just begun. And this time I was the only author. In the weeks following my public rebranding event, whispers turned into roars. What started as speculation in small circles became a wildfire of gossip in the industry. I didn't have to say a word. I just let the receipts speak for themselves. Daniel and Celeste had moved in together. A modest apartment, nothing like the glass mansion we once called home. The mortgage had been paid off by me. But the deed was in my name and the home had been sold months ago. Daniel had to watch strangers live in the house he once paraded in front of everyone like a trophy. He tried pitching new ideas. A startup consultancy, a wellness for executives podcast, even a men's grooming brand. But no investor would touch him. Not with his name still smeared in articles, still dripping in scandal, his public image too unstable. And Celeste? She was now seen as the pretty liability. The opportunist who wrecked her own sister's marriage. Job offers dried up. Friends began to drop away, quietly unfollowing her online. Even her college alumni network stopped inviting her to events. They told themselves lies to survive. Daniel's lie: I was always better than her. He just got lucky. She'll crash eventually. Celeste's lie: Ava's just hurt. She'll forgive me. He always has. But neither of them understood. The Ava they knew was gone. When I walked into the office now, people stood straighter. Smiled wider. Looked me in the eye. I'd been the quiet one. The kind partner. The woman behind the man. But that woman had learned her lesson. My team had tripled. We opened our second location in Chicago and partnered with 3 luxury brands for their 2025 campaigns. When I launched our new program, Founders Rewritten, a mentorship initiative for female entrepreneurs who'd been pushed out or betrayed, it blew up online. Suddenly, my inbox was flooded with women like me. Women with stories. Women with strength. I wasn't just healing, I was leading. It was a Thursday when I saw her. Celeste. She was waiting in the lobby of my office, looking out of place among the sleek black marble floors and soft gold lighting. Her once shiny hair was pulled into a messy bun. No makeup. Her jacket wrinkled, her eyes rimmed red. I hesitated at the elevator. Then I nodded to security. Let her up. She stepped into my office slowly, nervously, like a child entering the principal's office. And for the first time since the betrayal, I didn't feel pain looking at her. Just distance. Thank you for seeing me, she said, sitting across from me with her hands twisted in her lap. What do you want, Celeste? Her voice cracked. I made a mistake. No, I corrected gently. You made a choice. Repeatedly. Behind my back. In my house. With my husband. On my birthday. She flinched. I didn't know he was like that, she whispered. I thought he loved me. I tilted my head. And now. He barely speaks to me. He drinks. He blames me. He says I ruined him. I let that hang in the air, then replied simply, you both ruined each other. Tears welled in her eyes. I miss you, Ava. That's not my problem. He stared at me, shocked. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't lashing out. But the cold calm in my voice? That cut deeper. I wanted to say sorry. You should have thought of that when you were wearing my robe and sleeping in my bed, I said evenly. But thank you for the apology. You can go now. Daniel and I hadn't seen each other since the day I told him he was a minority in his own company. But I heard about him through whispers, articles, even old acquaintances who still hadn't picked a side. That changed on the night of the Women Who Build Gala. I was being honored for Founders Rewritten and our international expansion. The room sparkled with crystal chandeliers and flowing gowns. The stage was flanked by portraits of women I admired. And as I stood at the podium thanking everyone who stood by me, I saw him. In the back. Watching. Alone. After the event he found me. Ava, he said, his voice rough, like he hadn't spoken to someone who mattered in a long time. I turned slowly. Took in the sight. The man who once thought he was untouchable now looked like a shadow of his former self. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes tired. What do you want, Daniel? I made a mistake. I gave a small, humorless laugh. You know, that's becoming a popular chorus these days. He stepped closer. I didn't realize what I had. But I thought she loved me. And did she? He didn't answer. I nodded. Exactly. I miss you. I stepped back. You miss the version of me that made you feel powerful. You miss the woman who cleaned your messes, paid your debts, softened your image. He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. I'm not her anymore. He looked at me with a pain I couldn't feel. Is there any chance? No, I said, my voice firm. There isn't. Revenge isn't just about breaking the other person. It's about rebuilding yourself so completely that their presence becomes irrelevant. Their opinions meaningless. Their apologies useless. By the time Daniel and Celeste realized the depth of what they'd lost, I had already outgrown the space they once took up in my heart. I used to think justice meant punishment. Now I knew. Sometimes justice means watching your enemies crumble under the weight of the lives they chose, while you rise quietly, beautifully, and completely out of their reach. A month later, I sat down for an exclusive magazine interview. The journalist asked me the question everyone wanted to know. How did it feel to lose your husband and your sister at once? I smiled thoughtfully. I didn't lose them. I was freed from them. She blinked. So, you don't regret anything? I looked her dead in the eye. I regret staying so long in a story where I was written as a side character. But the moment I took the pen back, that's when the real story began. I bought a cottage by the sea, just outside the city. Somewhere quiet where I could breathe, write, and dream without looking over my shoulder. It wasn't lonely. It was peaceful. The air smelled like salt and possibility. And each morning I drank coffee on the porch, barefoot and free, watching the waves roll in like promises. One day I might love again. But for now, loving me is more than enough. Daniel filed for bankruptcy within the year. His new ventures failed. Investors blacklisted him. Celeste moved back in with our parents, trying to pick up pieces that never belonged to her. They blamed each other. They cursed my name. But it didn't matter. The email arrived on a cloudy Tuesday afternoon, buried between board meeting notes and investor updates. Subject: Monroe Family Gathering, Celebration and Reconnection. From Celeste James. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I didn't expect it. Celeste always had a knack for twisted timing. But because she had the nerve to send it as if nothing had happened. In the message she wrote, "We've all been through so much. It's time to reconnect, rebuild, and move forward as a family. Daniel will be attending as well. I hope you'll come. It wouldn't feel complete without you. Love, Celeste." Complete. As if we were a jigsaw puzzle missing one smiling piece. As if she didn't sleep with my husband and then play house in the wreckage of my life. I didn't reply right away. I didn't rage or delete it. I just saved it. And smiled. Because some invitations are more than a call to reconnect. Some are opportunities. Contrary to what they thought, I no longer needed to punish them. They were already living inside a slow-burning hell of their own making. But that didn't mean I couldn't turn on the light and show them the ashes. I decided I would go. Not to seek revenge. Not to forgive. But to draw the final line in the sand. To look them in the eye and let them see what they lost. Up close and unforgettable. It was held at an old estate just outside the city. Some desperate attempt to look sophisticated. The kind of place with ivy on the walls and champagne on silver trays, trying too hard to hide the decay underneath. I arrived in a black silk dress, minimalist gold jewelry, and a presence that turned heads. People noticed. Eyes lingered. Even the servers whispered my name. When I entered the room, the air changed. Daniel looked up from a group of aging businessmen and froze. Celeste, dressed in an off-white gown that tried too hard to look innocent, turned pale. I walked straight to them. "Daniel," I said calmly. "Celeste." He cleared his throat. "Ava, we weren't sure you'd come." "Clearly. That's why you waited until the last minute to invite me," I replied, voice light but sharp. Celeste stepped forward. "We meant what we said. We want to heal." I tilted my head. "You want to feel less guilty. That's not the same thing." People were beginning to stare. "Let's not do this here," Daniel said, jaw tight. "Oh, we're not doing anything. I'm just here to observe. See how the happy couple's faring." Celeste's voice cracked. "We're not a couple anymore." That made me pause. "Oh." I raised a brow. Daniel looked away and then left. Celeste's voice dropped lower. "He left 2 months ago. Said I was bad luck. That everything fell apart because of me." I blinked. That part one hadn't known. "He used me," she whispered, eyes wet. "And when there was nothing left to gain, he vanished." I stared at her for a long moment. And then I laughed. Not loudly. Not cruelly. Just enough for her to hear the years of pain being shed. "Did you really think he'd choose you forever?" I asked softly. "You were never the prize, Celeste. You were the distraction." Her lips parted. I thought. You thought I'd fall apart. That you two could build something from my ruins. But you didn't realize I wasn't the ruins. I was the architect." I turned to leave, but Daniel stopped me outside near the garden. "Ava," he said, not with fire or anger but weariness. "I didn't come here for a scene." "Then don't make one." "I don't blame you for everything that happened," he said, eyes flickering. "But I lost everything, Ava." "You didn't lose it," I replied coolly. "You gambled it. On lust. On lies. And you lost." He exhaled heavily, rubbing his forehead. "Do you really think I don't regret it?" "I don't care if you regret it," I said. "Regret doesn't impress me. Growth does. But I haven't seen any." He nodded slowly, defeated. "I miss you. You miss the life I gave you," I said sharply. "But I don't. And that's the difference between us." Back inside, I gave a short toast. Kept it classy. Elegant. I smiled. "To new beginnings," I said, raising my glass, locking eyes with Daniel and Celeste. "And to the wisdom that sometimes, losing everything is the greatest gift we'll ever receive." There was polite applause. But the message? It hit like a blade. That night, I returned to my seaside cottage. I slipped off my heels, tossed my phone on the counter and watched the tide come in. I didn't check for messages. I didn't wait for an apology. I curled up with a glass of wine, the sound of waves in the distance, and a book I'd been meaning to read for years. No anger. No heartbreak. No chaos. Just peace. The kind that comes when you finally bury the past. Not in grief, but in grace. They still check my social media, I'm sure. They still hear my name in articles, see my face in magazines, spot my photos at events they're no longer invited to. But they'll never see the quiet mornings. The joy of building something real. The love I now have for myself, my life, and the people who never betrayed me. They'll never know what true freedom tastes like. Because you can't taste freedom when you're choking on your own lies. It started with a broken heel. Literally. I was walking out of a panel event where I'd just spoken about resilience in leadership, navigating betrayal in business, and rebuilding after collapse. My words had struck chords, especially among the women in the audience. I was stepping off the stage, tired but proud, when my heels snapped on the edge of the platform. I wobbled. And a hand caught me. Strong. Steady. Warm. "You okay?" came a voice. Deep, smooth, confident. I looked up. And met his eyes. Nathan Cole was a venture capitalist, known for investing in brands built by women. Especially those who'd been counted out. He wasn't loud. He wasn't flashy. But when he entered a room, people noticed. "Impressive talk," he said, helping me down to level ground. "Thanks," I smiled, adjusting my broken shoe. Apparently, my confidence was too heavy for my footwear. He chuckled. "Can I offer you a ride? Or at least a less hazardous exit?" I hesitated, then nodded. "Sure." We talked in the car. About business, books, bad sushi at networking events. There was no flirtation. No pressure. Just comfort. I didn't feel the need to impress him. And that's what impressed me. We didn't rush. Nathan was patient, respectful, and never once asked about Daniel or Celeste. He never saw me as a woman with baggage, just a woman with battle scars who wore them like armor. Our dates were unassuming. Walks by the pier. Late-night dinners where we laughed too hard over dessert. Sundays spent sharing stories and coffee, curled under blankets while the ocean murmured outside. One night, as we sat on my porch watching the tide, he asked softly, "What scares you most now?" I thought about it. "Trusting someone with the healed version of me," I answered. "Not the broken one. The whole one. Because now I know what I deserve, and I won't settle again." He didn't respond with empty promises. He just reached over, took my hand and held it, gently, reverently. As if he understood. It was a charity gala. I hadn't planned on going. But my team insisted. It was a major PR event and Founders Rewritten was being honored again. I arrived in a midnight blue gown with a plunging back, Nathan by my side, his hand resting lightly on the small of my back. Not possessive, not performative. Just steady. People stared. And smiled. But one pair of eyes burned with recognition. Daniel. Standing near the bar alone. Disheveled. Dull-eyed. The shine was gone. I didn't stop. But he did. "Nathan Cole," he muttered when we passed, his voice coated in bitter disbelief. "That's who you're with now?" Nathan turned to him, cool and calm. "Yes." "And you are?" Daniel flushed. "I'm her husband." I turned to face him fully. "Ex-husband. Don't forget." He looked between us, swallowing hard. "You really traded down, huh?" Nathan smiled politely. "That's funny. From what I've seen, Ava's only been trading up." I reached for Nathan's hand and gently guided us away, leaving Daniel rooted in place, eyes hollow, jaw clenched. That was the last time I ever saw him. After that night, Daniel stopped showing up at events. Stopped trying to revive his image. Stopped calling, texting, or emailing, maybe because he finally saw it in person. I had moved on. Not out of revenge. Not to make him jealous. But because the version of Ava he once thought was weak had become untouchable. With Nathan there were no games. No mind tricks. No walking on eggshells. He didn't flinch at my strength. He admired it. Encouraged it. One night as we sat under the stars he asked me, "Do you still think about them?" I didn't have to ask who them was. "Sometimes," I admitted. Not with anger. Not even with sadness. More like a scar you forget is there until the weather changes. He nodded. "That's fair. But I hope someday you stop noticing the weather." I looked at him. With you, it's already changing. When Nathan proposed, it wasn't extravagant. It was on my porch, barefoot, with my favorite book in his lap and a ring tucked inside it. I don't want to fix you, he said. I just want to build a life with the woman who fixed herself. I said yes. And the announcement stunned the media. Headlines like, "From betrayal to billionaire. Ava Monroe engaged to VC powerhouse. The ex who cheated, the sister who lied, and the woman who won anyway." And somewhere in the shadows of a quiet, bitter life, Daniel saw it. Celeste saw it. And neither of them would ever be part of my story again. I received a final letter. Handwritten. From Celeste. "I know you'll never respond. I don't blame you. I just wanted to say I see it now. Everything you were. Everything I tried to take. I didn't win anything. I just lost the only real family I had. I don't expect forgiveness. But I hope you find peace. Because you deserve it more than anyone." I folded the letter, placed it in a drawer, and never opened it again. Not because I hated her, but because I no longer needed her apology to feel whole. Nathan and I didn't have a perfect life. But it was honest. Built on respect. Shared dreams. And quiet mornings full of laughter. We started a foundation for women rebuilding after betrayal, called Ashes and Iron. Because some women rise from ashes. Others rebuild in steel. I was both. Years later, Daniel's name resurfaced only once, in a news snippet about unpaid debts and legal disputes. It was short. Forgettable. Like a chapter no one reads twice. I smiled. Not because he suffered, but because he finally faded. And in his place I had built something lasting. Love. Leggy. Peace. 5 years ago I stood at rock bottom, blindsided by betrayal, humiliated by the two people I once loved the most. Today I stood at the front of a global summit in Paris, introducing Ashes and Iron International, our expansion into Europe. Our foundation had supported over 12,000 women. Survivors, mothers, creators, and warriors. Many with stories far worse than mine. The spotlight wasn't just on me anymore. It belonged to every woman who had been underestimated, dismissed, replaced, and came back unstoppable. Behind the scenes, Nathan stood watching just as he always did. Quiet support. Steady encouragement. Never needing to outshine, only to uplift. When I stepped off stage, he kissed my hand. "I still can't believe they ever thought they could break you," he whispered. "They didn't break me," I said. "They just freed me from playing small." One afternoon, while sorting through old foundation documents in my study, I found a dusty folder in the back of a drawer. Inside, copies of divorce papers, Celeste's last email, and the photos the private investigator once handed me. I sat for a long while looking at the faded ink. This was where it all began. This was the proof of their betrayal, the weight I once carried like chains. No. It felt weightless. Not because I forgave them, but because I outgrew the need for them to feel sorry. I burned the file that night. Not in rage. In ceremony. Let the ashes join the ocean breeze. Let the past stay buried. My daughter was born in late spring. We named her Alara, after the moon that's farthest from its planet, always orbiting, never captured. Independent. Free. Holding her for the first time, I thought of how many women give and give until there's nothing left. How many are told they're too much, or not enough, or replaceable. I whispered to her then as she blinked up at me. "No one will ever teach you that your worth comes from being chosen. You'll know it comes from choosing yourself." Nathan cried quietly beside me. He knew. He'd loved the version of me I rebuilt from ruins. And now I'd given life to a new legacy, one untouched by betrayal, born of power and peace. Years later I wrote something late at night. Not for publishing. Not for social media. Just for myself. It was titled, "To the Girl I Used to Be." You cried quietly on your birthday while they smiled in secret. You blamed yourself. You thought if you had just been more, he wouldn't have strayed. She wouldn't have betrayed. But here's the truth. You were always enough. They just weren't ready to face a woman they couldn't control. You turned silence into strategy. Pain into power. And now look at you. You built a life so big they became a footnote. Not because you crushed them, but because you didn't need to. You rose without them. I folded it into my journal. A message not for revenge, but for remembrance. On a rainy morning in Manhattan, I stepped into a bookstore to avoid the storm. As I wandered through the aisles, I heard a voice. Familiar. Wanted. Celeste. She was working the register. No longer glamorized. Just human. She looked up as I approached. For a second, the color drained from her face. "Hi, Ava," she said, voice barely above a whisper. I nodded. "Hello." I didn't expect. Neither did I. There was a pause. "You look happy," she said. "I am." She looked like she wanted to say more. Maybe explain. Maybe apologize. But I gave her a kind, final smile. "You don't owe me words," I said. "We've both moved on. That's enough." And I left. No parting insults. No rehashing. Just closure. Real closure. Daniel and Celeste once loomed like towering shadows over my life. Now they were memories. Blurred, quiet, insignificant. People ask me sometimes if I'd change anything. Well, because every betrayal led me here. To a love that respects. To a purpose that empowers. To a daughter born from healing, not heartache. And to a version of myself I never would have met if they hadn't walked away. And every time I look at my life now, my home, my work, my family, I don't think about what I lost. I think about what I claimed. I built a life they couldn't touch. And in that life, they became exactly what they deserved to be. A footnote. It's every woman's reminder that from the deepest betrayal can rise the most powerful rebirth.